Urgent. In February 2026, military strikes by the United States and Israel triggered a devastating chain reaction. Iran's forceful retaliation effectively paralyzed the Persian Gulf, turning a localized strike into a full-scale maritime blockade. Overnight, the marine insurance market, the financial protection required to operate cargo ships, completely collapsed. With vessels facing the threat of being boarded or fired upon, commercial tanker traffic dropped by over 90%. This created an immediate logistical pileup. Within hours of the initial warnings, more than 170 massive container ships were stranded just outside the Gulf, dropping anchor to wait for a resolution that was not coming. This was the deliberate severing of the world's most critical energy artery, a maneuver designed to hit the global economy at its most vulnerable point. To see why this waterway holds such power, we have to look at its geography. At its narrowest point between Iran and Oman, the Strait of Hormuz spans just 21 miles. But because of shallow waters and coastal islands, the actual navigable shipping lanes are significantly tighter, each a mere 2 miles wide. Every day, 20 million barrels of crude oil are forced through this space, representing 20% of global supply. But oil is only half the equation. 20% of the world's liquefied natural gas, or LNG, is also trapped behind this narrow corridor. The spatial logic is clear. The modern global economy relies on a physical passage so narrow that a localized conflict can paralyze international trade instantly. When the strait closes, the immediate question is always the same. Why can't we simply pump that trapped energy overland and bypass the water entirely? This map traces the alternative routes. Saudi Arabia operates an east-west pipeline that connects its oil fields to the Red Sea, and the United Arab Emirates has a pipeline running directly to the port of Fujairah. As the bars on the map indicate, physical infrastructure has hard mathematical limits. Combined, these bypass pipelines can only handle roughly 3.5 to 5 million barrels per day at absolute maximum capacity. When you subtract that from the 20 million barrels trying to leave the Gulf, you are left with a 16 million barrel daily shortfall. There are simply not enough steel pipes in the desert to absorb the overflow. For Qatar's massive LNG exports, the situation is even worse. There is zero bypass infrastructure for their gas, leaving 100% of their critical supply stranded at the docks. Plan B is a mathematical myth. There is no physical or infrastructural substitute on Earth capable of replacing the Strait of Hormuz. To see where the crisis hits hardest, we have to look east. 84% of all crude transiting the strait is destined for Asian markets. This puts countries like Japan and South Korea in a highly precarious position. Both nations rely on imported fossil fuels to meet over 80% of their total energy needs, with the vast majority of it flowing through the strait. Without that continuous fuel supply, these manufacturing hubs face immediate shocks. They scramble to buy expensive replacement energy, leading to massive trade deficits and sudden stagflation, a toxic economic condition where inflation spikes while economic growth stagnates. Because Asia acts as the factory floor for the entire planet, energy starvation there guarantees the immediate collapse of production for everyone else. As this aerial view of the container port suggests, the energy shock transmits outward almost instantly. Skyrocketing manufacturing costs in Asia are hitting global supply chains without warning. Add to this a compounding logistical nightmare. Commercial vessels are forced to take massive, expensive detours around Africa, adding weeks to transit times, while marine insurance premiums surge to record highs. The inevitable result for Western economies is a massive wave of global goods inflation, reminiscent of the severe oil shocks of the 1970s. Energy economists published decades of academic warnings about this exact vulnerability. Previous conflicts and countless near misses clearly forecasted this structural failure. The geopolitical powder keg was meticulously documented, but the global economy chose to ignore the math, right up until the moment the bottleneck finally snapped.